Welcome to the NBAV podcast. Welcome back to NBAV, the NBA Avenue podcast, where we are going to salute 4 teams for the way they've played in the first 9 to 11 games of the season. The season is a long journey. It's 82 games, but very quickly, you've just poured through a nice, solid first portion of it. It went by in the blink of an eye, and 4 teams have well exceeded any possible expectation that you could have had for them. And we're going to start with the first team, none other than the Golden State Warriors. They're sitting atop the Western Conference at 8-2. They're a couple of years removed from the last time they won a championship. They are 2 scorers down from where they've been. A staple of the Golden State Warriors roster for every single one of their championships is also gone. Players who you would expect would bring those same type of impacts. And somehow the Warriors are not just sitting in the play-in tournament range. They're sitting at the top of the conference. And it's early. But if you get the victories early and teammates buy in, there's a good chance you'll be around later. And the Warriors had a very, very nice golden opportunity when the season started, because for their first 5 games, everyone knew that they had a relatively easy schedule. And the thought was, if the Warriors can start off and get a couple of victories early, go 5-0 or 4-1, that might be the little jumpstart they need to stay in this tough Western Conference. They lost their third one and Curry got injured. So they're sitting at 2-1, and their best player by far on the team, like, it's not even close. There's no close second best player to Curry. So Curry goes down. And now they're looking at, what are we going to do? We're 2-1, and now Curry's out. Not only do they win the games that Curry's out, but they go from not having Curry, they go from having Curry to not having Curry to reintegrating Curry back in, and all of it happens seamlessly. And the Warriors never stop winning. They're 8-2. So since being 2-1, over the next 7 games, they've gone 6-1. And they've beaten the Celtics. They beat the Thunder. So they've really done everything that you can possibly need to do. They've played weak teams. They've played medium teams. And they're getting victories over everybody. This was not a team that you expected to be at the top of the conference right now. This was a team that you expected is on the verge of not making a playoff at all. Not even making a play-in spot. Just take yourself back to what you were thinking before the season started. When Klay Thompson left, and the Warriors got even worse, and they brought in Buddy Hield and Kyle Anderson. These aren't guys who you thought were going to make the difference and bring them all the way back up. Plus, they've had guys who haven't even played, really. So, how are they doing it? They're doing it with sheer will. They're doing it with tough defense. They're doing it with putting in a greater effort than anyone else in the league, really. Well, maybe except for a few of these other teams that I'm going to name. These top 4 early teams that deserve heaps and heaps of praise for the way they've started off the season. The next team after the Warriors are just so incredible, winning 8 out of their 10 first games. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And the teams they've beat to do it, it's just tremendous with the injuries, and it's absolutely insane. The second team that I will salute are the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets started off the season 0-2. They lost Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who was a big part of their championship team, Jamal Murray has missed several games. Aaron Gordon has missed several games. It doesn't matter who goes in and out. Westbrook comes in. Westbrook, you think, is putting up a negative impact? Westbrook fights back, puts up some big games, gives them some good energy. Jokic doesn't get the foul calls he needs. They fight back, they win close overtime games, and that pushes them to then go to the next level. And they unlock Michael Porter. Christian Brown has been very consistent. They get Strother and Peyton Watson to start contributing in ways that they haven't up till now. And somehow, through sheer will and grit, Murray goes back in the lineup. Murray's out of the lineup. He's back in the lineup. As long as Jokic supplies that core intensity and the contribution that he gives on a nightly basis, the pieces around them, they are extracting as much as they possibly can from all of their role pieces. They've now won 5 games in a row. And for a team that repeatedly, year after year, goes backwards in terms of talent, they are somehow sitting in the 4 seed, only 1 game back of the 1 seed. They're 7-3, and there's 3 8-2 teams, and that's it. It's just 1 game separating the 3 top teams from the Nuggets. The Nuggets are right there. After starting off 0-2 and going to overtime in the 3rd game, they could have very easily been 0-3. What do? They fight. Instead of being 0-3, fast forward a little bit, and they're 7-3. How are they doing it? They've beaten some of the best teams in the league as well. Every game is a rock fight with the Denver Nuggets. But they have too much respect for themselves. Has the team got better? I would say no. I would say they got worse when they lost Bruce Brown. They got worse when they lost KCP. And somehow they force the next guys around them to just battle. To battle and never stop. And that's how the Nuggets are doing this. Does Westbrook help them on an efficiency standpoint? Maybe not. Does he help them on a tenacity and toughness and self-respect standpoint? Oh, boy, does he. Boy, does he do that. You want to throw Westbrook under the bus. Look at a lot of his contemporaries and the teams that they're on and tell me that. Look at a lot of the guards who Westbrook will be compared to when his career is over. How are they doing today? What teams are they on? Are they fighting the way he fights? Is Westbrook the top triple-double MVP king that he once was? Maybe not. But does he have that dog? He's still got the dog. And these are just many reasons. Obviously, it starts with Jokic. You give a little credit to Murray for the way he plays in the games that he's played, but he's missed about half of them. Aaron Gordon. These are the guys who they have had to play, and they still find a way. Like the Warriors, the Nuggets find ways to win, and they're still sitting right there, no matter who they've lost, no matter who's been injured. They are right there. The third team that I will salute are the Cleveland Cavaliers. Because 11 games in a row is something that is so difficult to do that no other team is close to that. No other team has 1 loss. There's the Cavaliers at 0 losses, and then the next best teams have 2 losses. So the Cavaliers have gone 11 games. They haven't lost even once. Every other team has lost at least twice. So to win 11 games in a row, and there were some games, there was a game against Brooklyn that Brooklyn really could have won, and the Cavaliers just wouldn't go away. They wouldn't stop fighting, and they snatched it right at the last second to keep the perfection alive. 11-0. Now, were the Cavs expected to be a great regular season team? Sure, they were expected to be a good regular season team. Were they expected to be a top 1 through 5 playoff team? Yeah, they were expected to do that. Have they been decimated by injuries? No, they haven't. They've had their roster. The only real guy who's been out almost every game, or actually every game, is Max Strus. Outside of that, everyone's played for them. But even so, are the Celtics undefeated? Are the Celtics 11-0? Are the Celtics 10-1? No, they're 9-2. They've lost 2 ball games. Even teams that win 80% of their games, like the Celtics have for the last couple of years, don't typically win 11 in a row. That's very, 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 very hard to do. Now, do I think that the Cavaliers are a team that you're going to be frightened of if you encounter them in the playoffs, if you run into them? I don't think so. I think you'll just see the Cavaliers for a team that they are, that they're a great regular season team, and they've yet to show anything in the playoffs, and several of their teammates have yet to prove anything in the playoffs. The only one who's really proven that he can go do something big in the playoffs is Donovan Mitchell. No one else has really shown that. Garland has been underwhelming. Mobley and Allen have been underwhelming. The role players obviously have just been role players and haven't done anything spectacular. But nonetheless, to start off the season and go 11-0 is tremendous. Think of how difficult that is to do. The most difficult games in the NBA to predict are the early season games, where everybody thinks they have a chance, where teams are still figuring things out. To come into the season and just make it look like you've got everything figured out to the tune of 11 straight victories, and how many teams in the history of the NBA have started off the season 11-0? I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm very curious to know it. It can't be more than 2 or 3 teams to ever do it, I would imagine. 11-0. And you have to salute them. There's no way around it. What they've done is absolutely, absolutely tremendous. It's the Cavaliers, the Celtics 2 games behind them. And then the next best team is a 50-50 Pacers team, 5-5 in the Eastern Conference. You have 11-0 Cavs, 9-2 Celtics, and the next best team is 5-5. That means the Cavaliers have built a 5.5 game lead over anyone not named the Boston Celtics. The Cavaliers are there, the Celtics are right behind, 2 games back, and everyone else is leagues below those 2 teams right now. And the Cavaliers deserve tremendous credit because they're not coming off a championship like Boston. They're not going out there with multiple champions, with players like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Granted, Jaylen Brown's been out for a couple of games, but those 2 guys, and Derek White and Drew Holiday and Al Horford, and they have Porzingis coming back at some point, and they have a bench upon bench upon bench. That's not the Cavaliers. But the Cavaliers somehow are 2 games ahead of them with a perfect 11-0 run. But there's one more team that I want to highlight as well. One more team, and that is the Phoenix Suns, sitting tied for the best record in the Western Conference at 8-2. What did they do in the offseason that took their team from where they were the last couple of years to where they are now? Very little. They made very few changes. They brought in a rookie, Ryan Dunn. They brought in Tyus Jones to play essentially backup point guard. Maybe he starts, maybe he doesn't. That's not the point. The point is you have a team that you have Bradley Beal and Devin Booker to run things. You have Kevin Durant to run things, obviously, a lot of the time. Jones go from wing to wing to move the ball, make sure the offense flows. That's pretty much all they've done. Tyus Jones and Ryan Dunn. So how have they gone from a team that's barely above 500 to a team that started off 8-2? They did it, first of all, through those pieces being the right pieces. It's not necessarily how great each piece is, but it's how those pieces fit and mesh with each other. They've had Bradley Beal, as usual, bounce in and out of the lineup. When he's been there, he's been okay. He's helped. But they've had the pieces. They've had Ryan Dunn, Tyus Jones. They've had Royce O'Neal pop off for a game. They've had Grayson Allen show some stuff now that he's back. But no matter what, the consistent thing that's never changed is these Suns are fighting Suns. These are not the same Suns as the last several seasons. They're a team that I get a good glimpse of over at Footprint Center in Phoenix. And they don't always have that same fight. But they know how important the regular season is in the West if you want to be a playoff team. And they have been fighting to win these ball games. And they've had a lot of games come down to the wire. And Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, specifically Kevin Durant, has done a lot to win those games in the clutch. And that's why they're 8-2. Not only that, they're 8-2 after losing last night. So they were 8-1. Now that Kevin Durant is out, they're 8-2, losing in overtime to the Kings. So they nearly even beat the Sacramento Kings without Durant. And that's the challenge. How are you going to be able to continue this now that Durant is out? But then again, that's why you start off the season wanting to do something like go 8-2. Because now, if you start losing a third more or a quarter more of the games than you would have, at least you're set up to the point where when Kevin Durant comes back, you should still be in the mix. And it'll be interesting. Will the Suns start to drop? I would think yes. I would think the Suns are going to start dropping some games now without Durant. We'll have to see their upcoming schedule to get a really good feel for how things are going to go. But they have the Jazz in the next one. So the Suns have the Jazz in the next one. And then they got the Kings again. So they got the Jazz, the Kings, and then they've got the Thunder. So they'll get one more easy one, and then they got the Timberwolves. They got the one more easy one, and then they'll play the Magic. So one easy one, and then it's a mix. They got Utah, and then it's a mix. If they can win this Utah game, go 9-2 to start, be atop the Western Conference, they'll be in position to steady things enough so that when KD is back, they'll still be right near the top quarter of the Western Conference, right near that upper half of the playoff teams, and that's where they got to be. That's where they got to be. If you want to not have to put pedal to the metal and rattle off a tremendous amount of victories at the end of the year, they've got to do exactly something like they did now. Start off 8-2 and show this is a different team. Are there that many different players? Not necessarily. But the team overall, the sum of the parts, is a different team than they were in seasons past. So those are the 4 teams. Conversely, we could do the opposite. It's pretty obvious who we would talk about if we wanted to talk about the teams that we're the most disappointed in. That would be the Milwaukee Bucks at 2-8, led by Lillard and Giannis. It would be the 76ers at 2-7, not getting Embiid to play in the first 9 games. Paul George barely playing. Beyond that, you'd go to the Western Conference, and you would have to look at the Pelicans, where their whole team is injured. They're 3-7. And you would have to say the Los Angeles Lakers, after starting off 3-0 and now going 6-4, you'd have to say it's a little disappointing. Although they've won their last 2 games against easier teams, it's a little disappointing, but it's still early. You thought that this was going to be... The Lakers had an opportunity to do what the Suns did. Start off the season doing something like an 8-2 and show, hey, we're different. And for the first 3 games, you thought, hey, these Lakers are different. The coach made a big difference. This team goes out there and gives it 110% every game. And then they quickly showed that they're not really that team yet. And they may never be. They're still the team that goes out there and looks like world beaters from time to time. And in between, they just look like a team of average Joes who aren't giving their full effort. So I would say it's a little disappointing considering where they could be. If you had to say, after the Lakers started 3-0 and they looked unbelievable. And the coaching was phenomenal. And the effort was there. They looked like one of the dominant teams that were going to happen this season. There was the Anthony Davis MVP talk, all of that. And you would say that after going 3-0, they're only going to win out of their next 8 games. They're only going to win another 3 out of the next 8. So meaning they started off the season 3-0. And then out of the next 8 games, they're only going to win 3 more. That would be not what you would expect. You would expect a little bit more. So I would say, are you disappointed? Yeah, you're probably disappointed a little bit in the Lakers where they are now versus where we thought they would be after those first 3 games. But they're in the gauntlet. The teams that I'm saluting in this episode, the Warriors, the Suns, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Denver Nuggets, these are teams who are largely one step above any serious threats to them. The Cavaliers are sitting at the top very comfortably. The Warriors, the Suns, and the Nuggets are clearly in that upper echelon there. They've done what they had to do to put a little tiny drop of separation. Now, it's still so early that, of course, if they go into a funk, if they lose 3 or 4 in a row, they'll be right back with everybody else. But if they lose 1 or 2, they've given themselves enough of a cushion where they'll have an opportunity to right the ship. That's what these teams have done. They've given themselves a cushion with a fast start, an impressive start, impressive effort, and fight, and they've put themselves in position to where they can think to themselves, hey, this could be a really big year for us. And everyone will buy into that. Tonight, you've got a relatively quiet night. There's 5 games of basketball, and they're not all that interesting. But you've got the Brooklyn Nets going against the New Orleans Pelicans. At this point, any team facing the Pelicans is going to be the favorite against the Pelicans with the players that the Pelicans are putting on the court right now. You'd have to think, great opportunity for Brooklyn to go and get the victory and even things up on their season, go 5-5. That would be a phenomenal start for these Brooklyn Nets, playing behind Cam Johnson and playing behind Cam Thomas. This would be a phenomenal start for them. 5-5 if they can get the victory over the Pelicans tonight. You have the Wizards, who are really, in the NBA, there's no real teams that are just throwing out inexperienced scrubs, except for the Wizards right now. The Wizards are, maybe with the exception of Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma when he comes back, it's just an experimental team. It's just a team that's out there for guys to get reps, as you saw last night in the way they played against, who was it? They played against the Sixers. No, sorry, that was the Sixers against the Magic. Yeah, because when they were playing the Magic haven't really won a game since Paolo Banchero went out. And then last night, they're also without Wendell Carter. And then still, somehow, the Magic just trounce the Wizards in the second half, easily beating them 121-94. Big victory for Orlando. So the Wizards are just a team that's not putting competitive, experienced NBA players out there. Even Detroit, they have some experience. The Wizards really have. Maybe they're putting Valanciunas out there for a few minutes, but they really, really are low on the experience, and they're putting out guys who you wouldn't expect to win games with. The Rockets should win that game. The Rockets have had a pretty good start for where their expectations were, and they should win this game as well. The Kings going against the Spurs. The Kings have some ground to cover, and they coming off a great victory last night in overtime against the Suns. You'd have to imagine they're going to beat the Spurs. So these are 3 matchups right here that you think you know what's going to happen. You think the Nets are going to beat the Pelicans and what's left of their lineup. You think the Rockets are going to beat the Wizards and their young group. And you'd think the Kings are going to beat the Spurs. You'd also think that the Thunder, even without Chet, should be able to beat the Clippers, although it's a bit dicier now. It's getting a little bit dicier now that Chet's injured. But you'd still think the Thunder got to beat the Clippers at home. And you'd also think the Cavaliers are probably going to beat the Chicago Bulls. Zach LaVine looks like he's probable to play in this one, But still, Lonzo's out. Not that that makes a difference. He hasn't been someone they've relied on. But the Bulls don't have as great of an offense. They don't have great of a defense. The Cavaliers 11-0. Are they going to lose it to the Chicago Bulls? That would certainly be disappointing. So you have 5 games tonight, and they look like 5 games that you would think you can predict. The Nets over the Pelicans, the Rockets over the Wizards, the Kings over the Spurs, the Thunder over the Clippers, and the undefeated Cleveland Cavaliers over the Chicago Bulls. But there's still a game to play. Like always, we're your source for a great time every time, and until next time, we are out.